Welcome and thank you for joining me here again at Film Pro Productivity. Each week I'll be introducing concepts that film professionals and other creatives can use to make life easier and avoid creative burnout. I'll also present time management and lifestyle hacks for a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 14, 5 free apps to make you more productive. Now, last week's episode was all about habits and habit forming, and one of the reasons that I started this podcast at all was to get back into the habit of creating content again. It took drive, it took focus, and it took a bit of vision, but once I got into the swing of it, I just kept on going, and here we are. You wouldn't be listening to this show now if it wasn't for the power of habit. So, if you have a new habit that you want to form, or a bad habit that you want to break, and you missed that show, do check it out. Every episode of the show can be accessed directly via filmproproductivity.com, or you can find it on any number of the podcasting apps out there. Now, please do get in touch and let me know how you're getting on with things, and if you have a moment, specifically, I'm interested in what you're struggling with. The reason I'm interested in what productivity techniques that you're adopting or what matters you have problems with, what you're struggling with, whether industry-wise or personally, is so that I can tailor future episodes to help you to tackle it. The format on this week's show is a little bit different as I want to offer you suggestions on productivity apps which you can use to make your day-to-day life and work just a little bit easier. Now, I'm not sponsored by any of these apps, at least not yet. These are just the ones that I genuinely find useful and that I actually use, and most of them I use every day. Sadly, I've not discovered any app to research and create podcast episodes, which I still have to do one word at a time, but luckily there are a few awesome and mostly free apps out there that will make our lives easier. I'll put the links to the apps that I'll be talking about in the show notes on the website, so don't panic, you can always grab them there. I'll give the exact address at the end of this episode. Peter Drucker, the American-Austrian educator, said that until we can manage time, we can manage nothing else. And one of the greatest apps out there for managing time, in my opinion, is Google Calendar. It's free, it works cross-platform on PC and Apple desktop, and on Android and Apple devices. I use it every single day, probably 10 times a day or more. I use Google Calendar for all of my work bookings, all of my travel arrangements for jobs, and all of the important deadlines and meetings that I have coming up. I just stay on top of it, and if a date moves, as soon as I get that information, I log in and make the change. And that's important because if you only partially use it, it can only partially keep you right. I've also got several calendars for several email addresses, and they can all come up on the app simultaneously, or you can toggle through them. For example, you could have a calendar for work, which I have for my fight directing work, a calendar for family, for picking up kids and getting them to swimming lessons and dentist appointments or whatever, and a calendar perhaps for your own projects. You can also denote different colours to each calendar so that you can tell at a glance what is what. And Google Calendar also sends you reminders. There's reminders on mine that tell me 24 hours before something is going to happen, and then it pings again 30 minutes before. As I said a minute ago, in order to get the best from Google Calendar, you really do have to keep it updated. But it's kind of like my old Filofax, which I updated religiously, and if you do commit to using it, it will make your life easier. Not having to retain the details of every single date and time and place you have to be makes this app invaluable. Entrepreneur Mark Cuban says that whatever you can say in a meeting, you can put in an email. If I've got questions, I'll tell you via email. Following on from that, my second free productivity resource is Gmail. Yes, Gmail. I get swamped by emails at my fightdirector.com address. Most of my mail goes through that. But once I set up a new project, like this podcast for example, before I do anything else, I set up a new Gmail account. And why is that good for productivity? Because everything I have set up for this podcast is now in the same place. My Podbean account, which is my media host, my iTunes account, my Spotify, Stitcher, Blueberry, Envato, SpeakPipe, MailChimp, Twitter, everything to do with this podcast goes through my FilmPro Productivity at Gmail address. And anything that doesn't, there's a few that I've got tied to my Fight Director account as I had a pre-existing relationship with them, like Wix, the website builder. I just forward those emails to the podcast Gmail account so that they're there too. So if I need anything to do with this podcast, I go to that Gmail account, log in, and it's there. I don't have to hunt in my main address. It just makes life very easy. I also do this for my film projects, and when I finish a film and no longer need the email address, when emails to that account become few and far between, I then go into the settings and set up a forwarder so that any new emails that come to it get forwarded on to another catch-all email address that I've set up. And if anything comes to these email addresses, I get a nod that it's there through my phone. Yeah, Gmail is my second awesome productivity app for all these reasons, and if you are clever about how you use it, it will save you a lot of headaches. Next on my list, and it's another app that I use every single day, is Dropbox. I have all of my important... Oh, hold on, that's my calendar app telling me that my friend Alistair is picking me up in 30 minutes. See, I told you that it was good. But anyway, where was I? Yes, Dropbox is where I have all of my current work folders, all of my recent documents, and also a few shared folders. Of course, I'm thinking now that you might not know what Dropbox is or what it actually does. Effectively, it's an online folder, like a folder you might have on your desktop, but it's on the cloud, in the cloud, in the cloud. It's out there. And you can put anything you like in it. You can put pictures, video, Word documents, PDFs, scripts. It'll take anything really. Video content, podcast content, whatever. It just acts like a folder, but it syncs with other devices. It syncs with devices that have got the app, which could be your mobile phone, your iPad, your desktop itself, your laptop. You can put it in all of them. And alternately, you can actually just access that folder directly through the Dropbox.com website. If you've got the correct password, you can get into your folder. And it's very, very secure. So that's basically what Dropbox is. If you save something, it goes on into the cloud securely in your Dropbox folder there, syncs to all of your devices, and if you want to access it, you can do so immediately, your latest draft. If you've saved one draft in the house, you travel to work and you need to see what that last draft was, go into your Dropbox where you've saved it, and your latest up-to-date draft will be right there. You get the first 2.5 gigabytes of space for free when you sign up for Dropbox, and for some of you that might be enough, but I've actually got my free allotment up to 21.2 gigabytes. And I did that by recommending friends and taking on various free offers that came up along the way. You can, of course, pay for extra space, but I've not actually had to do that yet. I use the other free app, Google Drive, which is very similar to Dropbox but different, for overspill items that I might need on just random occasions. With Google Drive, you get 15 gigabytes, I think it is, free at first, so you might prefer just to go with that one. Dropbox, though, is my weapon of choice as it's simple, I'm used to it, and I like its format. I mainly use it on my desktop or my laptop when I'm writing fight risk assessments, but I also use it at least once a day, accessing it through my phone. If I go into it now, I can see that I've got a few random images and PDFs dotting about, but I organise it quite specifically and have folders for every film and show that I work on. For example, I have a folder for BBC Scotland's River City, which contains all of my risk assessments for the previous season and the current one. Previous seasons have moved to backup folders in the Google Drive previous years, I should say, I've moved to the Google Drives. I don't need instant access to them. But last season, which I have in Dropbox still, has 20 episodes which contain fights, and so far this season has 9 episodes, each with its own subfolder which contains PDFs of the scenes, the dialogue, etc., and also my own risk assessments for them in Word format. And if they've been completed, there is also a PDF format Risk Assessment 2, I can access these anywhere and make alterations whenever necessary. Now, because I've set up my Dropbox to view by date, it's effectively just a folder in which you can contain many, many other folders. But because it's by date that I'm looking at it at the moment, the folder at the top is the podcast folder for Film Pro Productivity, and within it there's 15 subfolders containing notes and scripts, etc. for each episode, plus folders for music and show notes and marketing, etc. All easily accessible and up to date. I've got a folder for the TV show Shetland, which I was shooting this week and last, and a folder here for Bannon, which is a Gaelic show, shoots on Sky, which I shot this week and will continue on Sunday. And I know that because I've just put it in my Google Calendar. And I've also got folders for my feature films in development in Hong Kong with my friend and colleague Brian Larkin, as well as in development films for myself, of my own, I should say. It's a very lively place for a very lively schedule. It's not unusual for me to be shooting maybe 5 or 6 productions in any one month, and Dropbox, in combination with the other free apps that I'm listing here, keeps me on top of it all. I've got 2 shared folders here as well. One is a family album created by my niece, who is researching the family history, and another which is created and updated by the River City production office, as that is a very regular gig for me. In that folder, my line manager updates a fight schedule, and every time a date moves or disappears or a script update is made that might affect me, rather than emailing me or calling me about it, I get an update via Dropbox. It's a very efficient system, to be honest. Dropbox really is an essential productivity tool as far as I'm concerned. Self-help author Patti Digh says sometimes our stop doing list needs to be bigger than our to-do list. That's another quote I can't help but agree with. Check out last week's Habit Forming podcast for more advice on that, or episode 2, which talks about the power of saying no. The quote does have relevance to this list though, as next up I suggest you try the free productivity app Todoist. That is Todoist. I discovered recently that you can actually tie this app, even the free version, into Google Calendar, and that makes it all the more amazing. Todoist is a to-do list organizer and a reminder app, and it's one that I really, really love. If you have a list of things to do, then grab this app and type them up. You can create separate lists within it based on your list topics. What Todoist does, though, is not just hold on to your list and allow you to cross things off, although you can do that, when you complete them, but it will remind you every day of what is still to be done. That daily reminder helps you to maintain the drive and willpower required to complete them. For that reason, and because I've been using it now for about 2 years, Todoist is number 4 on my list. Mrs. Beaton, who wrote the Book of Household Management, famously said that there should be a place for everything and everything in its place. So, with that in mind, the final app that I will be recommending today is Pocket. It's yet another free app which is available, like everything else on the list, across all platforms, and its purpose, as Mrs. Beaton says, is to give you a place for everything. Everything on the web, that is, that you want to save and view later. I use it every day when saving web pages, YouTube videos and articles that I'd like to read later or that might be useful for this podcast. I still do favourite and bookmark pages on browsers, but if it's a quick read that I don't want to lose, I drop it into Pocket, where later on I can much more easily find it and view it on any device without searching. One of my very favourite things about Pocket is that you can not only have it on your mobile device, but you can have it as an extension to Google Chrome, which is my recommended browser, incidentally. So if there's anything you see there that you don't have the time or the inclination to read then and there, you can simply save it into Pocket. If you have it installed, it comes up as an option for you to save into on your Android and Apple devices, and it's a clickable button on the toolbar for Google Chrome. I know there are similar apps around, but for me, the standalone Pocket app, which is fast and simple and free, is top of the list. Martha Stewart said that life is too complicated not to be orderly. And these 5 apps will definitely make your life more orderly and productive if you use them. They're tried and tested, and if you're willing to embrace them, you're going to love them. That said, please remember that many apps are as bad for your productivity as these ones are good. As you try out some of these suggestions, perhaps you should think about losing some of the apps in your phone that really disrupt your productivity, or at the very least, take them off your front page so that you have to hunt for them in the app menus instead. Make them a little bit less easy to access, and perhaps you'll eventually stop using them altogether. I'll have to do another one of these episodes, to be honest, as choosing the apps to talk about today has been really, really difficult. There's desktop extensions too, which are awesome, but I'll have to leave all that for season 2, basically. I feel, though, I should put a full stop on all this with a quote, and although the episode is a bit more factual than inspirational today, I've got one that I rather like, and it's another one by Peter Drucker, who said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." He also said that nothing is less productive than to make more efficient what should not be done at all. So I'll leave you with that. A link to every app and a full transcript of this episode is available at filmproproductivity.com/home/episode 14. Go there, try them out, and see how they work out for you. They're all free, but some have some in-app purchases, which can be used to expand their capabilities. I, however, have to say that I only use the free versions. Next week's episode, episode 15, will be the final show of season 1, and I'll be marking that occasion by discussing the very important topic of setting and achieving goals. Until then, take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity. Podcast music that you're listening to right now is Adventures by A Himitsu, and you can read the show notes for this episode on the official website at filmproproductivity.com. If you're struggling with something you think I can help with, or would like to tell me how you're getting on, then please get in touch via the contact page on the website, or alternately you can follow the show on Twitter at FilmProProdPod, or join us on Facebook at Film Pro Productivity. Please support this podcast by subscribing, leaving an awesome review, and spreading the word. If you can get just one new person to tune in, I'd really appreciate it.